The Mount Analogue, a novel of symbolically authentic non-Euclidean adventures in mountain climbing 1944 is an unfinished novel by the French surrealist poet and writer René Daumal. The book describes a group of intellectual mountain climbers who aim to reach the top of Mount Analogue, even though its existence is uncertain. It's a metaphor for the quest for a type of mystic knowledge obtainable only through metaphysical experience. The book was recommended to a young Adelina Kuberian von Furstenberg, the curator of the first edition of Standard Triennial of Contemporary Art in Armenia, by Meret Oppenheim. Daumal's novel, which also inspired Alejandro Jodorowsky's 1973 film The Holy Mountain, is the starting point for the first Triennial of Contemporary Art in Armenia, presented in two parts and held in various cities in the small Eurasian Republic Gyumri, Yerevan, Kapan, as well as a writer's resort at Lake Sevan. Following Armenia's defeat to the Turks in 1921, the imposing Mount Ararat is now found in the extreme east of Turkey, and due to unresolved historical-political tensions, the border between these two countries is closed. For Armenians, especially those based in Yerevan, Ararat is a sort of Mount Analogue, visible, sacred, but inaccessible. Daumal studied Sanskrit and adhered to the teachings of the Armenian philosopher and mystic George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, who was born in Gyumri in 1872. The city is the birthplace to several other Armenian artists and intellectuals such as sisters Maryam and Aronuhi Islamazian and sculptor Sergei Murkarov, who was Gurdjieff's cousin. The museum dedicated to the Islamazian sisters, which contains some 620 works the sisters made during their numerous travels across Africa, India and China, plays host to videos by Merali Nair, Idrissa Ouedraogo, Rosanna Poulazian, Jafar Panahi and Jajangi, which dialogue with the places the Islamazian sisters visited and painted between 1930 and 1950. In The Crossing 2008 by Merali Nair, for example, we follow the story of a woman in her native Indian village who, in her dress, recalls the women Maryam Islamazian encountered and painted on her travels in India decades before. At the Sergei Murkarov Museum and the Museum of National Architecture, around a dozen artists, including Ariane Anastas, René Gabri, Ricardo Arena, Marta Delangelo and Thibaut de Jalali, use forms of language to compare geography, literature and performance. While traveling throughout Armenia, Benji Boyajian mapped the land's geological layers and held a workshop on the citizens' perceptions of Gyumri in 2007, using the results to compose a group atlas of emotions. Other interventions were of a linguistic type, such as that by Giuseppe Caccavalli, who copied verses from the poem Journey to Armenia, written by the poet Osip Mandelstam in 1930, in large books and on walls. Armenia, Osip Mandelstam Dessins, 2014, Armenia IV, 2017, and Mikhail Ohanjanyan's carved texts into basalt, The Doors of Mehr, 2017. These works are fitting given that books have always been the privileged means for the conservation and transmission of Armenian culture. Just consider the Mitenadaran, the Library Museum of Ancient Manuscripts in Yerevan. In Yerevan, the first part of the triennial, the Mount Analogue, a contemporary art experience which ran till the 10th of October, was held across the former seat of the Armenian Parliament, the Armenian General Benevolent Union at GBU, and the High Art Cultural Center, the first art space in the USSR to specialize in modern art. Designed by architects Jim Tarosian and Gevorg Aramian in 1972, it demonstrates the perception that Armenia was an eccentric socialist republic in the Soviet galaxy where contemporary art was presented in an institutional venue, unlike the clandestine role it was forced to play in Moscow or other Soviet bloc satellites. Here we find 20 ways to get an apple listening to the music of Mozart and Concert for a Fly 1997, Ilya and Amelia Kabakov's surreal and poetic installations that emphasize their passion for the Austrian composer, whose pieces were performed live by the Tchaikovsky Special Music School musicians during the opening days in July. The solo show of work by Gaspar Gasparian 1899–1966, hosted at HEBU, presents for the first time outside his native Brazil a collection of images by the photographer illustrating his Armenian origins. The artist's family escaped Armenia before he was born, but Gasparian embraced the experiments of Rodchenko and the Russian constructivists, using optical distortions and abstract transformations in documenting urban objects and scenarios in São Paulo. The second part of the triennial, De Acute Javu Standard, curated by Ruben Aravshatian and which runs till the 31st of December, was inaugurated on the 12th of September in Yerevan with a monumental site-specific painting by Felice Varini in the city's railway station, transforming the vaulted space into a constructivist kaleidoscope. The writer's resort on the banks of Lake Sevan, designed by architects Georg Kocher and Michael Masmanian in 1932 and one of the most significant sites of avant-garde modernist architecture in Armenia, aptly hosts an exhibition including Gerard Bern, Joseph Dabernig and Igor Grubik. Once located on an island, and today sitting on a reclaimed peninsula, the Sevan Resort stands as a monument to the past and questions some crucial unresolved aspects of modernity. Using different languages and techniques, Bern, Dabernig and Grubik reflect on the utopias and dystopias of the past and present. Dabernig is fascinated by Eastern European modernist architecture, and the abandoned buildings he came across on his travels through the region have often become the subject matter of his films, such as Hypercrisis 2011, shot in the recreation home for Soviet cinematographers in Dilijan, Armenia, before it was demolished. If Grubik documents what remains of socialist monuments which testify to a near past screaming to be forgotten, Bern recreates past events using professional actors. A part of the show is devoted to the modernist architects who designed the iconic Sevan Resort, a recipient of the Getty Foundation Keeping It Modern grant for the conservation of modern architecture. Standard is the name of the avant-garde Armenian magazine, published only once in 1924 due to Soviet censorship. It's a fitting referent for NonEuclidean standard, which creates time-lapses where past and present intermingle. If this first triennial can be considered an homage paid to past experience with the will to project it into the future, it's clear that after Armenia's international recognition in winning the National Pavilion Prize at the 2015 Venice Biennale, for an exhibition also curated by Adelina Kuberi and von Furstenberg, the groundwork has finally been laid for a future-facing art scene to emerge. Main image Felice Varini, installation in Yerevan railway station for NonEuclidean standard, 2017. Courtesy Stand Art, 2017. Opinion Grey House. The debut feature film by Austin Lynch and Matthew Booth is a captivating portrait of America loosely inspired by Opinion. The deuce transcending the sentimental falsehood that makes nostalgia problematic, on David Simon's 1970s New York drama Culture Digest taste of life from Syrian construction workers in Beirut to life under post-socialism. The 2017 Open City Documentary Festival in Opinion. Paper Tigers. The controversy over the Guggenheim's Art in China after 1989 show highlights animal rights activists as one of art. Interview. Chains of Love. With a solo presentation at Frieze London, Melvin Edwards discusses symbols, self-expression, and his work in the Tates. News Briefing. Lee Rhodes and Nottingham Contemporary awarded Freelance Prize. Suzanne Pfeffer named director of MMK Frankfurt. Opinion. Strange Homes. Searching for the appropriate inappropriation. Opinion. All the Best shows the winner of this year's Palme d'Or is a fictionalized portrait of contemporary culture's new villain, the curator.